Bristol Motor Speedway, Friday night. It's raining. It's supposed to rain Saturday, be clear Sunday. Story today, Tony Stewart versus Goodyear, and NASCAR standing on the sidelines. Bad move, I think. NASCAR should get in the middle of this thing and clean it up. Tony was standing his ground. Yes, the tires at Atlanta were wrong. Everybody agrees. And now the pressure is on his fellow drivers to step to the plate and back him up. Tony said his piece. The rest of the drivers are starting to say theirs. Not quite as strong as Tony, but then that's Tony. And there's not just the Atlanta race at issue and the tires there last Sunday, which were way too hard. We've got Darlington. Greg Biffle says Darlington is too darn fast. Too fast. When Greg Biffle says it's too fast, it's too fast. He may be one of the fastest drivers in the sport, him and Kyle Busch. He was down there for the test on Monday, said the tires that Goodyear was using for a baseline, the Texas tires that are supposed to be used the April 6th race, were great, as long as they lasted. Good grip, new asphalt. He said they were really fun to drive on, and then they started shredding apart. So Goodyear had to go to a harder compound, naturally. They went to the backup compound, which was a hard Charlotte tire, and Greg said, undrivable. Jeff Gordon said, too hard. So now they're going back to Darlington this next week for another test. This is a lot of tests. Not enough tests, though, Jeff Gordon says. He says he talked to Goodyear while they were down at Darlington this week for that test, questioned them hard about the Atlanta tire situation. Atlanta tires were tested first last August, Kevin Harvick, and that was for the test, the big test, 43 cars, in October, the day after the Atlanta 500, with the new car tomorrow. Goodyear didn't like what they saw, so they came back in December. But they came back in December with only 2 cars. Actually, only 1 car and 1 truck. Jeff Gordon says that's wrong. These cars need to be tested on these tires. No word about the Texas situation. Eddie Gossage says teams need to test there. Ryan Newman says he's comfortable with what he saw at Darlington, that they'll be okay at Texas. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, the tire's shredded and he's comfortable? There's a lot of double talk here, a lot of politically correct words coming out of some of these mouths, and I'd like to see all these drivers speak their piece. Stu Grant flew in. He's the Goodyear tire boss. Flew in to talk to Tony. Took him all day to get to him. And when he did, Tony was apologetic in part. He said he didn't mean to offend the Goodyear people that actually mount the tires, the Goodyear people in the shops and the union guys. He wanted to get the attention of the brass, the guys above the racing division, and let them know they need to get up off their billfolds and start spending some money, start doing some more testing, start hiring some more engineers, getting some more computers, getting some more stuff done. He says he's not satisfied. Other drivers agree with him. NASCAR is a little leery about the situation. They don't seem to have a good stand on this. They want to criticize Tony and say he's being too outspoken. And yet all the drivers I talked to said, hey, Tony's right. Goodyear's wrong. On top of that, on top of the Atlanta test and the Atlanta race and the Darlington test and the second test coming up and the questions about Texas now, some of the crew chiefs were saying Goodyear's coming back with the same compound they used last year, but this is a brand new car with like half the downforce. They're going with a harder sidewall construction with these new car tomorrow tires. Drivers don't like the feel. They don't like the feel. That's when I'm finding out that these drivers say the sidewalls are so stiff that they have a hard time telling where the edge is, which is why they're spinning out. Goodyear might have to rethink this thing. Kevin Harvick says Goodyear and NASCAR both need to rethink their entire testing procedures. I'm thinking the 7 tests each year, that's outdated. They need to do more testing with the tires that people are actually going to race on, and none of this changing at the last minute. On top of Atlanta and the questions about Texas and the issues at Darlington, Jeff Gordon said today he doesn't like the tires they have here. They've got a new left side compound and a new left side sidewall construction and a new right side compound. And he says those tires have never been tested here. He says that's wrong, that Goodyear should have tested that setup here. He's right. There's no reason for that. Goodyear needs to get up off its billfold and start spending some money doing more testing. These guys tested at Atlanta last October on truck tires that were not good for the truck race. Goodyear, everybody knew Monday morning after the Atlanta race last October that the tires they were testing on for 2 days would not be the tires they would race on. That's just wrong. That's unacceptable. NASCAR needs to step in. NASCAR is standing by on the sidelines like they're disinterested. This is their sport. Where is the action? Where is NASCAR? Where is NASCAR in this situation? They're letting Goodyear battle it out. They put Goodyear in a terrible situation. They came up with the Busch rules for the engines for the Nationwide Series that make those Nationwide cars 15 miles an hour faster in the corners because they were worried about the Nationwide cars being faster than the Cup cars. That would look bad to the fans. Well, it looks pretty bad to the engineers that are trying to make tires that are going to suit the Saturday cars and the Sunday cars. I talked to Greg Stucker today, the Goodyear guy that's in charge of making sure we have enough tires each weekend. He says that Goodyear may be able to start doing different tires for Saturday Nationwide races and different tires for Sunday Cup races, but it might be 2 months before they can get around to doing that. They have a 2-month lead time, a 2-month turnaround time in tires. 2 months, that's unsatisfactory. And I've been talking to some Goodyear people behind the scenes. They say that Goodyear's facility for building these tires is out of date. They need new machinery. They need better machinery. And they say if you think that the tires that go on the Cup cars are a little iffy sometimes, you ought to try and drive one of the top fuel cars. They have the oldest machinery building those tires. It seems to me that Goodyear needs to do some work from the top down. Stu Grant's a good guy. He knows what's going on. He needs a bigger budget. Greg Stucker knows what's going on. He's a good guy. He needs a bigger budget. The president and CEO over at Goodyear need to take a serious look at this situation and up the ante. They've been taking NASCAR for granted. They're too complacent. They've said, we've got a monopoly. We can do whatever we want to. That's not good enough. Tony Stewart said as much. Dale Jr. said as much. Jeff Gordon said as much. This situation could get worse before it gets better. Oh, by the way, we did have qualifying today. Well, of the sort. It rained out everything just about. So Jimmy Johnson, who's had a terrible year, and Jeff Gordon are on the front row for Sunday's Bristol race. That's a little ironic, if you ask me. And, of course, the Wood brothers go home again. That's a situation that needs to be addressed. Those guys have been in the sport longer than NASCAR's been around, and they're getting the runaround. I think that Toyota and Ford and General Motors and Dodge need to reassess the way they approach NASCAR. They like the one team that can handle everything. For Chevrolet, it's Rick Hendrick. For Ford, it's Jack Roush. For Toyota, it's Joe Gibbs. For Dodge, maybe Roger Penske, I'm not sure. There's a lot of questions about the Dodge operation right now. But I think that Detroit needs to re-examine the way it treats NASCAR. NASCAR needs to get up out of the easy chair and start addressing some of these problems. I'm disappointed in NASCAR. I thought they were a little more concerned about this sport than what they seem to be right now. They seem to think everything's going to handle itself, that these teams are going to make things work. These teams are making things work. These drivers are making things work. Those drivers at Atlanta worked their tail off. No help from Goodyear or NASCAR on that. And that's the report. Friday night, a rainy Friday, Bristol, Tennessee. At least it's not snowing. Mike Mulhern for the Winston-Salem Journal and JournalNow.com.